G'day viewers, it's the end of the week. Feels like a while since I've done this. In fact, I think it's been 3 weeks since I've done a pre-recorded videos. How have you been in the meantime? I've been great. I hope you've been catching my live streams. If you haven't, you should check them out. They're fun. I like doing them, and it's great interacting with people live, and you can watch them back. It's like podcasts, because they go for hours. There's one with AZ that goes for 3 hours. We could be your friends while you're doing housework or something. Hang out with us in the virtual sense. But what am I talking about this week? Well, so much to happen. I just feel kind of so sorry for my American friends, where the dominant thing in American politics seems to be the Republicans' determination to repeal Obamacare. Just because they can't deal with the fact the black dude won 2 elections. That seems to be their big problem. It's like, no, a black guy winning 2 elections is against everything we believe, so we have to try and set fire to things he accomplished, and we don't care how many people hurt. We don't care how many people we hurt. Like, literally, their latest attempt to repeal Obamacare. Look, we've got a replacement. In simple terms, it would kill tens of thousands of Americans a year who would otherwise be alive. And the fact this is being seriously considered blows my mind. But I mean, you know, possibly that's secondary to President Trump saying the ridiculous inflammatory shit about North Korea. I don't think anyone sane particularly defends North Korea, but Trump just going to the UN and saying, we're going to obliterate North Korea. It's like, you're going to murder 55 million people? I mean, besides the fact that would be a war crime beyond imagining, you can't just wipe out North Korea. They would have a chance to retaliate. That would be the end of South Korea and Japan, and there would be all sorts of collateral damage and drifts of radioactive clouds and the complete collapse of the global economy and human society. And the fact that Trump is allowed to go around saying this shit, and I don't know, someone just doesn't get one of those bolt guns they use on cattle in slaughterhouses and straight in his head. I don't really understand that. So, you know, on one level I look at the simple things that are happening in America, that it's going to kill a bunch of Americans, and I think, oh, that's sad. And then I look at Trump trying to kill everyone, and it's like, man, I haven't fucking felt like this since the 80s, when we all thought we were going to die in nuclear war. And Trump is just basically seeming to want to bring about the end of human existence. And it's like, fuck, whatever, man. It's gotten so surreal, I can't even deal with it. I don't even like looking at it and thinking about it and wondering what's going to happen, because it's beyond any rational comprehension. So fuck, just fucking let it go. But you know, I like Australian politics is just a normal level of stupid, like not making any sense. The thing I've been talking about for ages now, the citizenship debacle that's engulfed so many people in the Parliament, in the Senate or the lower house. The Australian Constitution says you can't serve in the Parliament if you are a citizen of another country, and that includes being a dual citizen, because maybe you're not loyal. And half a dozen or more people have been caught up in it, Greens and Liberals. And my favourite, Malcolm Roberts from One Nation. When I say favourite, I mean the guy's a colossal fucking moron, and I want bad things to happen to him. And this week it did. The High Court finally said, you're a fucking muppet, and you were definitely a dual citizen when you went for Parliament, which is going to make you ineligible. And it's like, he was his own worst enemy. If he could just shut the fuck up, it wouldn't have been as bad for him. But over the duration of this debacle, he's like told repeated direct lies, like simple shit, like, I was never an English citizen. I was never an Indian citizen. Stuff that is simple, demonstrable facts. And he lied about that. Doesn't really give him a lot of credibility when he says, I did the right thing with making all the effort to renounce British citizenship before running for the Senate. And the High Court has found he didn't. And when he's giving his own testimony, it's like, no, I thought I did, and I got my sister to lodge stuff, and oh look, I did some research on the internet and found an email address which turns out to have not been a valid email address for a decade or something. He just made himself look like a complete fuckwit. And, you know, there's the rub, as Shakespeare would say, because he is a fuckwit. Left to his own devices, he can't do anything but make himself look like a fuckwit, because that's what he is. And he said the ultimate comeuppance. I love, like on Thursday, he gave his testimony, and on Friday it all wrapped up, and the High Court said, yeah, no. But on Thursday night, his lawyer was asked, like, oh, do you think, you know, Senator Roberts' own testimony would work against him? And his lawyer was basically, well, it didn't help. You know, when he sat up there being an utter cock and saying stuff like, well, in my mind, I believed I was only an Australian citizen. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Well, what the fuck is wrong with him is he's completely separated from reality. I love there was one report in the media here that said, when you look at what happened over the whole duration of this, and the evidence he presented, and the various public statements from One Nation, it's like, well, One Nation are either complete fucking morons or pathological liars. Because that's the only possible conclusion to draw. And I feel like referring to the famous taco commercial and saying, why not both? Because there are only a couple of things that One Nation can do effectively. One is be racist fuckbags. 2 is to be utter morons who make no sense. 3 is to be lying scumfucks. And 4 is to be really fucking stupid. So when, the media outlet posed the question, were they lying or were they stupid? I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think they could be lying and stupid at the same time. I think that's one of their skills. So, you know, hopefully Robert's gone. Then apparently we're going to get Pauline Hanson's sister in the Senate. It's not like it's going to be any better, but, you know, Roberts is a fuckhead, and if he suffers, that's good. And speaking of people whose suffering I enjoy, Nazis! There was another little story of a Nazi getting knocked the fuck out this week. It's a fucking magical bit of video of this Nazi who went around, you know, he's wearing swastika armbands, threatening people, trying to start fights, saying he was armed, who's going to stop me? And then eventually he ran into one dude who didn't give a fuck about him. Big dude who just, bam, one punch knocked him the fuck out, which is a thing that needs to happen. And it had this whole regular cycle of people wringing their hands going, oh no, but violence, we can't have violence. Preaching Nazi ideology is violence by definition. I've seen the stupidest fucking public statements I have ever seen in my life this week in relation to this Nazi. Various media outlets go, oh, you can't punch Nazis. You can't punch Nazis hard enough, fast enough, often enough. If someone wants to preach this genocidal ideology, this isn't a question of free speech. They, by definition, are threatening the lives of everyone who's not them. They need to be shut the fuck down and made clear their bullshit isn't acceptable. Even so, once fuckwit on Twitter when someone's saying like, well, you know, he's preaching genocide, so non-violence cease. Well, actually, this person wasn't the fuckwit. This person's saying, well, he's preaching genocide, so non-violence ceases to be a thing. He needs to be punched in the fucking head. And this other fuckhead goes, what's wrong with non-violently preaching genocide? Why do you have to hit someone who non-violently preaches genocide? I mean, wrap your fucking head around that for a minute. There is someone who is enough of a cunt to say preaching genocide can be a non-violent option. And you don't have to look far into someone like that's history to see they're also a racist, bigoted pile of shit. So I can't get over people wringing their hands over, but you can't just punch people you disagree with. If you punch Nazis, maybe you punch the wrong person. Like, look, okay, you know what? There most definitely is a danger that when you go, yeah, punch the fuck out of Nazis, somebody will punch someone who doesn't deserve to be punched, really. Someone who should be argued with, and it should be words and discourse. But when you look at the two things, the two risks of, one, someone who maybe doesn't deserve to get punched, getting punched, and two, Nazis having free reign in the fucking streets, the Nazis are the bigger evil, okay? And I would prefer it if people didn't punch someone just because they disagreed with them, but the idea that don't punch Nazis because it might go too far, fuck that noise. Until the Nazis are gone, you keep fucking punching the cunts. It's as simple as that. And interestingly, there was something you could potentially link to this in Australia. We've been having the ongoing marriage equality debate here, which is a fucking farce. But one of the worst voices on the don't allow marriage equality camp is former Prime Minister Tony Abbott. He's a piece of shit. He, like basically everyone on the no vote side, has been non-stop telling lies, spreading bullshit, and validating hate. And the strangest thing about the marriage equality debate in Australia has been how the no voters have not said anything about the actual vote itself. Everything they said has been something else. Ooh, free speech, political correctness. Ooh, there'll be no Mother's Day. Never. They have said brain-dead, moronic shit that is nothing to do with the simple vote. Should same-sex couples be allowed to marry? When they say, oh, you know what will happen with the yes vote? One thing will happen with the yes vote. Same-sex couples will be allowed to marry. Everything else they say, like, oh, it's going to be radical sex education skills. Oh, gender roles. Oh, those things are completely separate issues. If all you have in your argument is lies, irrelevancies, and absolutely fucking insane bullshit, then you don't have an argument. Now, where I was leading to with Nazi punching and Abbott, the other day, Tony Abbott was walking down the street and he got headbutted by a random stranger who had a marriage equality sticker on his jacket. And, I mean, initially, I thought there was a 50-50 chance Abbott was lying, because he is a pathological liar. He is, on the eve of the election that he won, he told a series of direct lies to camera. He's completely untrustworthy. He's completely unreliable. He is garbage and a liar. And I would not have been surprised if it turned out he fabricated the whole story. Turned out someone did have a go at headbutting. A guy who self-describes himself as an anarchist DJ. And look, when it first came out, the idea that someone had headbutted Abbott and it was possibly tied to Abbott's stance against marriage equality, I thought, well, you're a fucking idiot, really. That's counterproductive. It's hurting the yes vote. It's giving extra weight to the ridiculous fucking lies the no vote are saying. And it's stupid. And while I find Abbott contemptible scum, he's one of those people like, okay, I can understand the impulse to want to headbutt him, but we need to be better than that, and we need to not headbutt him. It turns out it really did happen. This guy did headbutt him. He's now given media interviews saying, okay, yes, there was a little vote yes sticker on my jacket. The headbutt was nothing to do with it. It's basically, I think Tony Abbott's a cunt on multiple levels. And let's be fair, Tony Abbott is such a piece of shit. The list of reasons for wanting to headbutt him is really quite long. There are a lot of reasons to want to headbutt Tony Abbott. But this guy said, oh, while I did have a vote yes thing on my thing, someone stuck a sticker on my jacket. That wasn't what I was thinking. I'm not an active advocate, although I do support the yes vote. But he literally gave this interview where she's like, I just saw Tony Abbott. And I thought, I'm never going to have another chance to headbutt this cunt. So I went for it. Again, I don't agree with it. I understand the urge, but I don't agree with doing it. Well, I didn't agree with doing it when it happened. But Abbott has been such a fucking piece of shit about this, and he's milked it for all this. And it's everything about how he's treated this has been really sick and gross. Like, he called the media. He didn't call the police and say, I've been assaulted. He called the media and said, ooh, a yes campaigner headbutted me. But then also, because he's such an insecure, fucking weak prick, he had to go, but I am still macho. He didn't get me very bad. Ooh, I got a little swollen lip. He didn't get me very badly because I'm a manly man. But he's still, you know, the yes voters, they're bad. And he actually directly fucking said, if you think him getting headbutted is bad, you should be voting no. And see, I was very much thinking, no, headbutting him was wrong. But if Abbott himself is saying the yes-no vote revolves around that cunt getting headbutted, by Abbott's own logic, if you have basic human decency and you think all members of society, all adults should have equal rights to marry the person they love, no matter the gender or sexuality, Abbott himself is saying you are fucking compelled to find him and headbutt him. This is not something I would advocate, but Tony Abbott is advocating it himself. He said if you're against him getting headbutted, you should be voting no. So Abbott himself is saying if you are for voting yes, you are an advocate of Tony Abbott getting headbutted right in his ugly fucking nut. Now, I wouldn't agree with it, but this is Tony Abbott. Tony Abbott is saying if you think a yes vote is the right thing to do, he deserves to be nutted. So as I've seen the hashtag floating around the Twitters, hashtag nut the cunt.